The Renault Avantime, a car that when it was released in 2001 looked like it had just come through a time portal from 2050. And movie companies agreed, with the car being featured in many near-future dystopian films like Children of Men and Ready Player One. The name Avantime is a portmanteau, that is, a smashing together of the French word avant, meaning before or ahead, and the English word time, meaning of course time. So like its name, was the Avantime just ahead of its time, or was it a nice idea but an automotive dead end? This is the Renault Avantime story. The Avantime story can't be told without a company called Matra, the name being derived from Mécanique Aviation Traction. They were founded just after the Second World War with the goal of making aircraft engines. By the 1960s they moved into the nascent satellite market. By the 1970s the company was a full-fledged aerospace supplier, but it also dipped its toes into things as diverse as music distribution, a personal computer, electric bicycles, a small sailboat and a rapid transit system. Matra had also looked into making cars. In 1963 they purchased sports car maker Automobile René Bonnet, which became Matra Automobile. Despite selling 60,000 cars a year, Matra realised that they couldn't go it alone, so in the 1970s they entered a partnership with Chrysler's European division. In 1981 the French socialist government decided to nationalise all defence companies. A large part of Matra was still in the defence industry, so the company was split up. The new smaller company found itself in a period of transition. The old sports car business wasn't faring well, and they were already trying to diversify with cars such as the 1977 Matra Rancho that was based on Chrysler's Simca 1100. The US division of Chrysler started looking at a minivan concept in 1977, and it probably wasn't a coincidence that Chrysler's European team started working on a similar idea around the same time. With Matra working closely with Chrysler and needing a new car to build, it's not surprising that they decided to produce their own minivan. But although Chrysler's European arm was now owned by Peugeot owners PSA, Matra eventually worked out a deal with rival Renault to release the vehicle that would go on to be known as the Renault Espace. The Espace was a gamble, but was an easy deal for Renault to take. If the car didn't sell, then Matra took the risk, but if it did sell, then Renault would take a piece of the profits. The car was an almost instant hit. Launched the same year as a North American Chrysler minivan that also sold well, the Espace would kick-start the European MPV boom. This was great news for Matra, whose finances came to increasingly rely on the Espace as sales increased into the 1990s. This sets the scene for the decision over the Avantime. It's the late 1990s and Renault's looking to design the fourth generation Espace. MPV sales were accelerating and companies like Renault were already building mini MPVs like the Renault Scenic. A large chunk of revenue from the increasingly popular Espace was ending up in Matra's bank account, so Renault decided the fourth generation Espace would be produced by Renault themselves, leaving Matra with nothing. It's unclear if Matra were already looking for a second model or if they cooked up the Avantime to replace the Espace. Regardless, it was the brainchild of Philippe Guerdon, head of Matra's vehicle division. The reasoning behind the Avantime was that Espace owners had bought the car to hold their gaggle of children and stuff. By the late 1990s those kids had grown up, but mum and dad still liked the idea of the Espace and wanted something similar that would fit their new lifestyle. Renault were open to the concept. In 1998 they signed an agreement to explore the vehicle concept, and Renault stylist Patrick Lecomant was brought in to give the car some flair, along with a Renault corporate look. You may remember Patrick from his involvement in the Ford Sierra in the 1980s, and his fall from favour due to the Sierra's lack of success. Since then he'd moved on to Renault, and in fact Patrick had driven a hard deal when he made the move. The design team would no longer answer to the manufacturing team, and Patrick would report directly to the CEO. Patrick wanted Renault to become a design-led company, and the CEO felt that this would rekindle Renault's fortunes after a series of bland, uninspiring cars. Renault and Matra had to decide what the empty nester families would want from their new grown-up Espace. The MPV had always been known for its acres of glass, so the car should have excellent visibility. It needed space, but only for 4 people, and those rear seats would only get occasional use, so why not just go with 2 front doors? What Renault and Matra found themselves designing was a sort of MPV Grand Tourer for the 21st century. The designers were soon calling their creation a Coupe Espace, again smashing the words coupe and espace together. And with it pitched at high-earning empty nesters, Renault felt that they could take it upmarket. They might even take some market share back from those German car companies who were ruling the large luxury car market. Confidence was running high in the team. They'd created a new category once before with the Espace, a sort of luxury small minivan with much more practicality. Could lightning strike in the same place twice? Taking the coupe theme and lots of glass, Renault decided to remove the B-pillar. That is the pillar that normally goes between the front and rear doors. By removing it with all the windows down and with a panoramic moonroof, the widest ever made at the time, the car became almost like a convertible, and the higher driving position gave occupants a feeling of security. The Aventime was given additional luxury features such as leather seats, a good-looking dashboard, windows featuring electric sunshades, and a one-touch control that would open all the windows and sunroof to give it that convertible feel. The designers would also experiment with new materials. Cars were getting steadily heavier in the 1990s as new interior gadgets and safety features such as airbags and more complex crash structures were added. More efficient engines could only get you so far in offsetting that weight. So Renault, like other car companies, looked to new materials to make the car lighter. The top half of the Aventime would be made from aluminium and the doors would be made of a composite material. But the lower half of the car would be pure third generation Espace, and in fact 50% of the car was made up of Espace parts. The exterior would be a bold styling statement. According to design project manager Thierry Métros, they wanted someone walking around the car to be continually astonished. The front surprises you, and then you move to the rear and you get another surprise with the rear bustle. They were intending to shock, to create a bold, innovative automotive statement that would be fun to drive. It was a car that brought the outside inside with a wall of heat-reflecting glass. The rear seats would be slightly higher than the front seats, giving theatre-like seating and adding to the drama. 4 doors were tried, but the designers settled on making it a 2-door. To make it easier to get into the rear, those doors were longer, and when the front seats folded forward, the rear windows automatically lowered. But those big doors would make entry difficult for front passengers in a tight supermarket car park, so the light composite doors would both hinge out and forward in a unique system to allow for easier access. The car was launched as a concept in 1999 and there was a lot of interest. The exterior styling followed the avant-garde concepts of the upcoming Renault Velsatis. It had some wonderful styling details such as the elegant rear light pattern. The rear bustle would become a styling cue for cars to come, such as the 2002 Megane and 2003 Scenic. Competing car companies would keep close tabs on this new car to see if they had to react to its success. And the interior was as innovative as the exterior, with a pop-up GPS system by Pioneer, individual rear seats that had their own screens to play the latest DVDs, plus a minibar between the seats to keep a perfectly refrigerated bottle of wine. After all, this was France and you've got to get your priorities straight. But like the Fiat Multipla and Pontiac Aztek, released around the same time, this was a car that split opinion. The design team, Renault and Matra, knew they were taking a risk, but sometimes you need to bet big to win big, and a bland car that follows the competition wasn't going to replace the big hole in revenue Matra faced by losing Espace production. The Aventime was slated for a summer 2000 release, but pre-production issues such as a flexing roof would delay the launch until 2001, and this would give it the nickname Aftertime. It would be released around the same time as the Velsatis, causing some confusion in customers' minds as they were cars aimed at the same type of customer. That wall of glass created an open cockpit, but the same couldn't be said for rear visibility. Having only 2 doors very likely hurt sales for an older target market who knew that their days of leaping deftly from the rear seat of a 2-door car were long gone. But one area where Renault and Matra excelled was the suspension. They worked hard to give this tall car excellent handling, and it got high marks from reviewers from holding its own through the bends. But for a car that was supposed to be high-end, there were some worrying fit and finish issues inside and cheap-feeling plastic. And the windows would shake if the door was closed too hard on early models because of the lack of a B-pillar. Renault got to work to clear up any problems, but not before this hurt initial impressions and sales. The car launched with a single engine, a powerful 210 horsepower 3-litre V6, giving it more than enough power. But France was a country that loved its diesels, and it would take until the following year until a 2.2-litre diesel was added to the mix, along with a more frugal 165 horsepower 2-litre petrol engine, which had the unfortunate short title of the F4RT engine, which to my eyes looks a little bit rude. Yes, I might look like a fully grown adult, but I have the mind of a puerile 8-year-old. The press gushed over Renault's daring automotive statement. There are very few cars that Clarkson, Hammond and May agree is excellent, and the Aventime was one of them. But despite all the good press, sales were disappointing. Maybe it was the fit and finish issues, maybe it was the striking design that the conservative middle-aged customers just didn't get, maybe it was the confusion with the Velsatis. Whatever the reason, Renault and Matra sold only 8,557 Aventimes in the first 18 months. Matra had spent big in its quest to create a hit car, both on design and in ramping up production. They were used to the income from the Espace, which had sold over 60,000 cars a year. By 2003, the losses from the Aventime became too much and Matra filed for bankruptcy. Production ended and the Aventime was no more. 10 years after the Aventime was launched, Renault held a reunion for Aventime owners. It's a testament to the passion for the Aventime that over 200 turned up to celebrate this unique car from as far afield as Serbia and the UK. The Aventime obviously spoke to a certain customer who wanted something a little different and appreciated what Renault and Matra were trying to achieve. And it's a testament to the team who built it that they love the car so much that some of them also turned up to celebrate it. Its head designer, Patrick Lequemont, has said that the Aventime was the most important car he'd ever worked on. There's a temptation to call the Aventime, like its name, ahead of its time, and that it presaged the crossover boom in the 2010s. But beyond cars that sat higher, which you could argue that was introduced by the Renault Espace in the 1980s, few of the Aventime's features have made it to modern cars. Large family cars with only 2 doors went the way of the Dodo in the 1970s, and the Aventime didn't help them stage a comeback. But one thing you can't say about the car was it was mediocre. And after all these years, it still looks fresh with innovative features. As the product design lead said at its 10-year anniversary, it's like a couture dress. Everyone likes it, but no one is actually ready to wear it. Maybe there's something in that. Maybe it was a car that was never going to catch on, but it's a wonderfully unique and original car. A big thank you to all my patrons for supporting me. To get early advert-free access to new videos or to appear in the credits, please consider supporting me using the Patreon link from just $1 or 80p a month, and hit that subscribe button to get notified of new videos. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.